To the recording, and we're going. Okay, so first of all, thanks for coming. It's another monthly webinar that I do, I think on, I can't remember if it's the second or third Thursday, but here we go. So I'd like to start out with, it's DE this weekend in Atlanta, and you know, I kind of live in the land of DE. I live in the space that the human body has 100% relationship with innate intelligence, and innate intelligence has 100% relationship with universal intelligence, and there's an impedance there, okay? And there's definitely an energetic impedance in the whole body, and it jams us up, and it doesn't just jam us up in some spinal level. If you look at this picture, it jams us up in every which way, and there are people saying that it jams us up at a cellular biochemical level. And people that look into those things, you know, we're different people. We look into other things. So chiropractic has noticed in its history that when it pushes the thing around, there's a lot of cool results. And my journey up to this part is, I'm going to ask you to turn your, you can turn, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of background noise. If you just turn on your mute, and if you got a question, please chime in. So chiropractic has for a long time been pushing into this thing, and it notices results. And so I've been out in the field for about 23, 24 years, and have pursued really the upper cervical approach to try to understand, you know, how to push something and create an orthogonal position between the head and the neck. And from that place and mastering that place in a couple different techniques, I just had some questions, and I started saying, you know, how do we move other things? I'm an engineer, so, you know, I'm up at the atlas, which is the smallest bone in the spine, and I realized that the big mover of the body is the pelvis, because big things move little things. And to speed you ahead 10 years ago when I asked that question is, how can I push the atlas that's anterior and make it move a posterior pelvis, has brought me to the conversation that we're going to have tonight, okay? And I'm going to have it in a way, because the purpose of the webinar is to introduce some new concepts to people that have been here forever, and also to kind of get you to see what we're trying to do here at you know, what I'm trying to do, and what the group of you that are on here are trying to do, is to be able to look at this picture as a X-ray and also as a three-dimensional human being, and look at it and see that it has not just been traumatized, because we're good at that. The medical model and us are very similar. You have this, you lost this, you have that, oh, look at this. That's what we do, and we do that in the upper cervical world. I did that, look at your atlas, look at your neck, look at your head, and then as a chiropractor, look at your curve, and then look at the degeneration, and that's all stuff, and that's mechanism. That's identifying something that we just can see. Well, what I'm going to have a discussion with you tonight is, how is it happening, how is it working, and what's happening to actually start changing this to where we want to go, and what is it that we want? You know, that's a great question. What do we want? Okay, as chiropractors, this, and it's not just to have a busy schedule, you know? So there's a lot of question on how this thing works. This thing has been traumatized, and guess what? It's not a building, it's a nervous system. Everything is neurologic, okay? So this thing, 24/7, is dealing with internal and external stimuli and trying to remain at homeostasis. And what does that mean? That means it's trying to use the least amount of energy to survive. Okay, why? Because there's a bazillion apps in there that are coming from one energetic source. And that energetic source gets overwhelmed from the trauma of this picture. And it not just from this, then we stick in garbage, and we sit on our butts, and we end up sick. So our responsibility and my responsibility is to try to understand how I can change the largest energetic user of the human body, and that is standing up against gravity. It's not the bone out of place. It's standing up against gravity, and this system does it completely as one unit. The pelvis just doesn't here, and the shoulders aren't just there. This is an expression of this human body that has had structural damage, neurologic response, and neurologic response, and neurologic response, and neurologic response. What do I mean by that? Well, you eat potato chips and you drink diet soda, then it's going to have a neurologic response to that. Okay? And at the end of the day, the system, as we get older, we get weaker, and guess what happens? We just start crashing down, and everybody gets broken down. Okay? There's a rule in my office. Grandma never gets taller. It's a standard rule. It's 100% win, guys. Okay? And our job as chiropractors, because we're supposed to be the experts at this, okay? And we have no ability to have a conversation about what has happened, where it's been traumatized, where it's biomechanically incorrect. I mean, should the shoulders and the pelvis be in the same tilt plane, frontal plane, when we have trauma? Where should the head be? Where should the neck be? I think we should need to know these things. So, how do we know where we want to go if we don't even know what we're looking at and how it's responding and what's not correct? And then what is the primary problem and what is the neurology? Okay, so tonight we're going to look at some of that. Okay, and it's just to touch base on it. And the purpose for myself is to be able to understand this better so that, and measure it, and actually from the cervical area is come into this thing and open it up three-dimensionally and lift it and open it, okay? Because when that happens, 206 joints are standing much better place if you lift this. It's like a flat tire that you start putting air into. The joints open, the nervous system opens, the space in the heart and the lungs open. Everything opens up. And you can actually change somebody's life very rapidly if you can actually get this person not just orthogonal, but the purpose that I have is to restore three-dimensional motion to the highest point of their tensegral sphere. Okay? Meaning all the way out. All right? And that's doable. That's doable. The thing that's doable, it's doable in a few visits, and it's maintainable in a lifetime. It's a golden rule, man. So I had a patient in my office on Monday, 85-year-old patient with significant low back issues, not to the point where she couldn't walk. And she had already had 3 steroid shots, and she was not getting the help that she needed. I adjusted her once. This is an 85-year-old lady, and on the table, I could feel the tension in the whole body release from the cervical area, like rubber bands just opening up. Everything just opening and opening and opening. And I said, "You're going to feel better." How many people do you get? How many of you get to say that when you're touching somebody? You're going to be better and actually feel it and know it. Okay. So I said that to her, and I saw the lady that brought her today, her daughter-in-law, that is having knee troubles, that just started PT. She canceled that visit, saw what we did, saw the way that we explained it, saw the cause and effect, and saw the path to helping her, and then saw the help happen at a very rapid pace to an 85-year-old lady. She was in today. She feels great, and the daughter-in-law started today. Okay? It's a perpetual giving practice because it's able to do what chiropractic has promised it's able to do, because it's been able to see that at multiple levels all the time. And the idea is to be able to create some consistency and predictability. Okay, so that's my purpose, and to initiate some of that tonight for you. So it starts with, there's kind of 6 sections to the human body, and tonight we're going to add a seventh one, and that is the legs. We're going to start having some discussion about them. And there's 6 pieces that get to move, okay, but they also react to each other. So they're not independent of each other because there's a nervous system in here. And what do I mean by that is that if you notice in this pelvis here, you'll see that the pelvis drops down low to the left, and look what L5 and L4 are doing instantaneously, pulling over to the right, okay? You could see the opposite going on. That's not normal, by the way, if you look at the facet angles. So the reason that is happening is because that pelvis is so severe, and the neurology is saying, for me not to fall over in the left frontal plane, I need to lock down my right muscles at my QL and lock that thing up. And then it tries to stabilize it all the way up, and you could see that going on as it's wiggling and wiggling. It's weak and it's collapsing down. Okay? So I look at these structures and I look at their relationship on a machine called the Posture IQ. I measure them. The Posture IQ is a device that initiated with Ralph Gregory and Nuka called an anatometer, and this is a 21st century one. Okay? And we look at the relationships here, and with these 6 structures, the head, the neck, the shoulders, the waist, the spine, and the hip, the legs sit underneath them, and they also have an ability to break down in different angles. We'll talk about that briefly, and we're building up to the conference so we can get into some details and really have some significant learning at that conference. So the cool thing is how is this thing constructed? I always look at things and I go, why is that going on that way? And we have a frontal plane and a sagittal plane. In the frontal plane, if you look at it, and if you decide to look at the muscle anatomy, you'll see that everything is in triangles coming off all the plane. You have QLs and all the way up to the traps. Everything is a triangle on the frontal plane because they are there to stabilize the straight spine. Now, it's just the opposite in the sagittal plane. We have 2 curves that are lordotic and one that's kyphotic. Well, why do we have that? Okay? Not just because we lift our head and we crawl. That's how universal intelligence is put in us to manufacture those so that we can have what? Is that we can be the only being on this planet that stands up because we have 2 curves pulling us backwards, the lumbar and the cervical curve, and the opposite one, the kyphotic curve, pulling us or keeping us forward. And what does that create? It creates 3 curves, which is one giant leaf spring bouncing up and down. So we have the stabilizing system in the frontal plane, and we have the sagittal bounce, and it's just the coolest system on the planet, and we're supposed to walk around and bounce, okay? The system is not sitting on top of each other. We are not a bone on a bone on a bone. If we're a bone on a bone, we're in trouble, okay? Because that is abnormal. That's not the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be expanding, okay, like a balloon. How do you know that? Because we have a push on your stomach. You'll see it pushes out, okay? There's a pressure inside. It's called tensegrity. That's what the people in the biomechanics world and the fascial world are looking at this system as, is not a bone on a bone like 19-0 chiropractic and still 21st century chiropractic, but as a 3-dimensional bouncing system that opens up. And they're just talking about that's the way we're made. The cool thing is that I'm looking at how we can actually help people get back to a better place towards that, okay? Not fix it because you can't fix it, okay? Yeah, we can't fix it, but we can support it, okay? So we got to know what you got to support, okay? So again, these are these questions that keep ramping up, and these are the questions that we talk about. So we have this cool little system and this frontal and sagittal plane, and we have a simple physiology, and that physiology is, to create balance. And we basically have 2 platforms. We have a shoulder platform. Your shoulders are supposed to modulate over your pelvis. So if your pelvis goes off to the right, your shoulders should come up to the left. So as the pelvis goes off to the right, say with trauma or with leaning, to create balance, your shoulder platform brings your head and neck up. And when it does that, it creates a very easy situation. Just, just tilt your shoulders back and forth, right and left, and you'll see there's no stress in your neck. Tilt your shoulder over to the right, and then bend your neck back to the left, and you'll see that that's not okay. So normal physiology is for the shoulder the pelvis and spine and the weight to go off to one side, and the shoulders, pelvis, and the shoulders, neck, and head to come up to on center. Sorry I said that way. Let me just repeat that. Your pelvis and your spine and your weight go off one side, and to create balance, which is the writing reflex proprioception, and is to bring the shoulders, neck, and head to oppose that, okay? So you could have a right pelvis with a right spine and right weight, with a shoulder, neck, and head to the left, and that's a balanced normal misalignment, and that's done by proprioception to be able to create a most energetic used spot, okay? Because the name of the game is, it's just a math equation for the body, is how can I keep as much positive and use as little as possible, all right? So why does it do that? Because it's freaking brilliant, So posture is just the largest app that we've got in the body. And to me, if we can communicate that with patients, guess what happens? Is we get an opportunity to go ahead and let everybody know that we can rule the roost once again. And the thing that connects everything for us is tensegrity. Okay, tensegrity basically says that we're this big balloon, and you could see that because you could see all the muscles and everything else. They're not simple strands that just run separate like cables. They're wrapped in a big net. Okay, and it's a big fascial net. And really, the way that I see things is, I see them in layers, but it's really just one giant thing. No different than your engine in your car and your seats. If you push your car, the whole thing kind of moves. Okay, and the whole human body is that same way. So we have this global structure of connection, and that's this osseous connection that runs on the inside that gives us, this rigidity and ability to move. So we're not just some balloon that has to roll around on the ground. We have fine motor movement and the ability to, with the muscles and the fascia, we have ability to, have fine motor movement and also to be able to have postural movement, okay? We also have this global neurologic connection where as things go off on the bottom, the top above modulates, okay? Which I found to be interesting when I noticed that, because as a one-time Atlas adjuster, if neurology is all up top, okay, from the writing reflex, I was constantly adjusting the neurology, which is why I saw nice things with, upper cervical areas at TN and migraines and kind of stuff, but I saw poor predictable results with myofascial stuff, below the neck, okay, because I wasn't able to get to those connections which are lower in the neck, okay? And then we have this global gravitational compression. We have this compression of gravity in every step that we make, and the amount that we lean and the configuration of those 6-7 structures, the head, the neck, the shoulders, the spine, the pelvis, and the legs, and if they are zigzagging all over the place and they're leaning off, 20, 30 pounds, guess what happens? That thing is very unstable, and the energetic system begins to collapse in the body. And depending on who the patient is and their inherent innate energetic quotient, then guess what happens? Some people come in and say, I got a little back pain, and some people are dying. Okay? So that doesn't matter to me, because I just know that if I can measure it and I see what is structurally breaking down and I see the way it's neurologically compensating, that I can start immediately to be able to see changes on the posture IQ that are predictable and doable, and not just getting somebody up on upright, but getting them in three-dimensional motion. And all I do is see magic. That's all I do, is I just see magic all day long. It's not just once in a while, okay? And I'm grateful for that. I'm not a wise guy about that. I'm grateful for it. I live for it. You could hear it. It's what I do, man. Okay? So, this is a problem. And it's time for us to be able to look at this and to say, hey, what's going on here? And not just to say this, and this. Okay? So, you could see the trouble, and is the nervous system responding correctly? Okay? How much is it in trouble? Okay, so we need to have some measurability. And that starts with not just looking at it and like in the little picture on the left and having little arrows or saying, this bone is, a PRS, or this is high, 4 millimeters, or this is rotated 2, is to have a three-dimensional conversation. And the conversation that we have now is this is a postural listing for QSM3. And my goal here tonight is to not go through every single thing here, but I'm going to point out some of the pieces and have some conversation. So what this is right, RRR, R3, P2, P2, LLL. And what that is, it starts at the bottom, that first R, and that tells me the tilt in the pelvis. See, what I want to look at is I want to see the breakdown of tensegrity, okay? Because obviously things don't go up. If you look at shoulders, you look at a pelvis, you look at a neck, the side that is falling down is the side that's the problem, not the other side, because things don't go up, okay? So we have to look at things that are breaking down and start understanding them and seeing that. So this is that conversation. So that says that first R, that my pelvis is low hip tilt on the right. Let me see if I can get my little marker scene cooking here. This one. Sorry, hold on 1 second. I'm just trying to. I don't know why this is not working. Oh, here we go. Oh, cool. All right. Sorry. So this is the first low hip. So this is a right low hip. The next is the spine. This is a right spine. Okay? Now, if you've been here long enough, you know that that's biomechanically normal. That's the way it's supposed to be. So all this stuff has relationships. Then there's the weight. So this is the weight. That's the third. So we've got a right low hip with a right spine and right 3 pounds. Okay? On the other side, we'll get to the middle in just a second. On the other side, this is the low shoulder. Okay? That other platform. And notice how it's opposing. The next is the neck. Here's the low shoulder. And then the neck, and then the head. Shoulder, neck, head. And in the middle, this is the twist of the human body. So this tells me that the person is off to the right on the lower part, turning back to the left. They've got 3 pounds off of center, and they're twisting 2 millimeters in the shoulder and 2 millimeters in the pelvis. Okay? And from there, okay, this is that same person. And if you turn the whole thing sideways like I have over here, it's basically the way the person stands up. And so we can look at the lower structures and say the lower structures have gone off to the right, the neurology is responding to the left, and without getting into tons of conversation, there's words like things that are balanced. Actually, we're going to talk about it in just a moment. So I see that there's a weight, there's a normal weight differential when people are traumatized and broken down, and there is normal rotation, okay? So all of these things mean something, and what this is the first literal, if this is the first time for you, okay, or the second time, you may start becoming accustomed to this, but from this listing, I can tell you if the person at all of those sections is biomechanically responding correctly. Are they in integrity with each other? Okay, so are the biomechanics correct? Is the neurology correct? Is the configuration correct? Is the frontal plane weight within normal limits? And this is my favorite one, is the energetic expression of how that person is handling that misalignment. So if you've got 20 pounds off and you're zigzagging all over the place and the rotation is 5 and 2, and if you have a person that has only 5 pounds off, where the other one had 20, and it's not zigzagging at all, and it's twisting and compressing 10 and 12, those are very different types of breakdowns and very different types of discussions that you have with patients because you understand the energetic capability of the human body. Okay? So it's no longer a bone, inanimate bone out of place. It is a living expression of trauma neurology, our expression of gravity. That's what the weight is, how the body is feeling that gravitational stress in real time and its energetic expression. Nothing even comes close to it. Not just in chiropractic, but anywhere else. Nowhere. At least I haven't seen it. Okay? And from there, once we have measured everything, we could start saying, hey, is this thing normal? This kind of this postural listing. Is it integrated? These are words you're just going to hear them tonight. Is the listing balanced? Is it sustainable? Sustainable is the place where you want a patient to get to. That's where you took them from a 20-pound misalignment standing on one leg to a 3-pound misalignment like a handbag standing on both legs. That is the stress change that we're looking for. We're trying to reduce the energetic need or demand of the misalignment on the body. And what does that mean? More energy saved? That's the name of the game. Okay? So one of the things that we are about, because tensegrity is an expression of lifting and being upward, is we try to open this misalignment, and we have measurements that show us whether the misalignment is springing open. Okay? It's not pushing a bone. It's looking at this and three-dimensionally trying to understand how to unwind it and make a three-dimensional key that releases it from the cervical area. It's unbelievable. Okay. So let's take a step now into a little bit different learning curve, and this is for some of the people that have been around, to get a little bit more value. So the webinars you're adding every month, and in a postural misalignment like this, there is the muscles themselves that hold you upright. Okay, and the muscles that hold your posture up are your pelvis, your spine, and your shoulders. Okay, those are the three through the core, and then the legs. Okay, so you have the legs, the pelvis, the spine, and the shoulders. The neck and head do not do that. They do not lift the body up. How can I show you that? Go ahead and tilt your body to the left, and then turn your head up to the right. Did you feel your body come up with it? The answer is no. So all they do is if the postural muscles break down, meaning your legs and your pelvis and your spine and your shoulders break down, there's a backup system to not deal with the energetic stress of posture, but to deal with the neurologic stress of the righting reflex being off the horizontal. So the eyes are turned upward. So the neck and the head are strictly neurologic helpers. Okay, they're not postural helpers. Okay. So I'm about and I'm about restoring things below, because if your first floor is off, your second, third, and everything else above it is going to be off. We're responding to it. Okay? So I started looking at, believe it or not, I only used to look at the head and the neck. I was a master of the head and the neck, and you know how the universe always has to give you. You have to look at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That's what I do now, more than anything. Okay, so I don't not look at the head and the neck. I look at them for other things, the neurology. But for when it comes to posture, I have to restore the posture first, because if I don't restore the posture, which is shoulders down to the legs first, then guess what? The neurology is constantly working to oppose that. Okay? So that's what I try to do. Okay? And that's kind of my philosophy. Where do I do that from? I do that from the cervical area. Okay? I don't do that. I don't push on lumbars. Okay? I look at a three-dimensional body and figure out from the neck how to release them, and there's release points up, C7 and C5, and the curves, all are attachments. They're the insertions from the bottom that come all the way up top, and you have this integrated unit. Go ahead and move your shoulders back and forth. You move you move L5 every single time you move your pelvis. You feel it moving every single time. So everything you do up and through your shoulders and through C7 and C5 are accessible to the rubber bands that are down below and the big fascial sheets. And that's what I move first. Okay? So, everything is neurology, okay? And we have reactions of muscle tension and energy depletion. That's all we have. Okay, so what does that mean is that we have a trauma in the body, okay? And the body reacts with creating some muscle tension. It pulls you upright, okay? And guess what it does? It either goes into spasm, okay? It overreacts, okay? Or it just falls out of gas. And what I see is patterns of the human body that are breakdowns, one after the other. They're successive stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So we have basically a few different types of traumas to the body, and then we have the normal response by the body. And then what happens over time is the body either goes in overspasm or in weakness, and it produces other patterns. And we'll see these in Atlanta, okay? But you can look through this. This is a person that the pelvis went off to the left, and then the shoulder responded to the right. That's a normal pattern. But over time, guess what happened? This right shoulder got tired. And over time, Russell got tired, and this muscle just started to weaken, and it could no longer hold up Russell because of that left low pelvis. So left low pelvis trauma, and now the body responded, and it picks that shoulder and pulls it over to restore the body to balance, to get C1 over L5 and S1, to restore proprioception. That's why those beds are there, so that they can efface each other. And guess what happens over time? Our energetic quotient diminishes. So that right shoulder and this whole right side can't hold Russell up because he's too fat. So the muscles start falling out, and it produces another pattern. And that creates the head and neck to turn then on their own to the right, and it creates a whole nother pattern like this. So we start out on 0, we get knocked off, and we respond to imbalance, and then we weaken, and then guess what happens? The pelvis falls out because this pelvis is now holding up. See, this pelvis down here now becomes a stress point of holding up this person from falling out over here. So these guys start locking, and now this swings out. And again, we're going to see these. I'm going to show you this to you. I'm just walking through this. It's not easy to just see this. And it produces this pattern, and then it produces this pattern where it collapses. So we have gone from 0 to trauma and a nice balanced misalignment of LLLRRR all the way to LLR, LLR. And that's zigzagging all over the place and collapsing, and this person is in deep distress. And because I can understand that and I can see that, I know what I have to do up here to get them back to this, in motion. On a visit or two, most likely. Good possibility. Will it last? No, it won't last. Why won't it last? Because they're broken, man. It's awesome. Okay? And all you have to do is change their life, and nobody else has, because you know the story. You guys hear the story. You see the people, you hear the story. The other side is that they just latch onto you, and they just get it, because they do. Okay? And it took me 15 years to find out what everybody else was doing. Past 10, so to speak. It's 13 and 10, 14 and 10, 10 years now that this model is now a three-dimensional model to be able to look at somebody. And you'll spend the weekend with me, and you'll understand the three-dimensional model. You'll see what's broken down, and you'll start the process of actually feeling it release in your hand. It's not easy, okay? But you know what's harder? What you're doing right now, I'll tell you that. That's definitely harder. How do I know? I did it, and I've done it. Okay, so that being said, all right, so we have some patterns of the body, and they start breaking down, okay? And what I wanted to show you today is I wanted to show you a little bit about the legs, okay? If you look at somebody standing up on the Posture IQ, that's where I do it. If you want to use a grid, you use your eyeballs. You stand in front of them, okay? Because I look at everybody visually in front of them, and I measure them on the Posture IQ in back of them. If you're coming to Atlanta, you'll see what it looks like, the Posture IQ. But this is the way the legs should look, okay? is that they should look like an isosceles triangle. You know, your left leg should be here and your right leg should be there, you know, if you're looking at somebody's back, and opposite obviously for this, but you should have a nice triangle. Well, guess what happens? People have damage, and what happens is they start changing to look like, instead of an isosceles triangle, they turn into right isosceles triangles. And you'll see that one leg is more of a hypotenuse. It's lean like this one, okay? And one leg is becoming straighter, all right? The one that's usually straighter is the one that they're putting the weight on, because look at what's going on here. Who's holding this thing up? This leg, okay? So if you're looking at somebody's back, the left leg would most likely have I've got it as a right isosceles triangle, so you're looking at this person, okay? So this leg would be bearing weight on this right side, okay? And this left leg is not bearing the weight, okay? This is important, okay, for us, because we see some misalignments that this is a guy. Actually, I'll get to that in just a moment. This is a guy that I see, and if can you see that well enough that on this side, can you see how this leg is straight right here and this leg is leaning? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you think he has weight?
Left side.
Yeah, he's got 37 pounds on the left side. Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Okay, Brad, you've been here forever. Okay, I'm not putting you on the spot, but if we go back to this picture here, what we just saw is this guy right here, this one. So which line is shorter, this line or that line? This would represent his left leg. This would represent his right leg. Which is shorter? The straight one, yes?
Correct.
Okay, it's not. Okay, good. Okay, so this right here, Brad, is his first structural trauma. Okay, everything else is responding. If you look at this picture, I had another picture, I just didn't have enough room, but it's everything is tilting to the right-hand side to compensate for this left leg. So he's had an injury this way, okay, and everything is compensating like that. This. That's what's going on, like that.
Hey, Russell?
Or this with his other leg. Yeah, hold on, Andy. Let me just show you that. Okay? So his pelvis leans out like that, so to speak, and his whole body is compensating the other direction. Okay? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we've had people, so he's basically, let's call him a right. Let's say his pelvis is right here, okay? And his weight's on the left-hand side. We see that plenty of times, okay? But his pelvis is right, and he's all rights, and I just never could understand why that's going on, because the body's supposed to be neurologically balanced, and now I see why, is that it's compensating for this leg below. Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Shouldn't that longer leg be the injured one, because the straight one is taking the weight now?
Yeah, he's been injured. He's been injured from right to left.
So the right side is injured, because that's not what he said. I didn't think that's what he said before. Okay.
Yeah, well, his right side is injured.
Right.
Okay? He's taken a blow into the right side. I mean, I can't tell you what's injured. I can tell you that his right side is weaker than it's weaker than it should be, because it can't lift him. It should be able to lift him off this, and it's not able to do that.
Gotcha. That's okay.
So
I want to make sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So and then this is after the adjustment, what I did to him, and he's much more balanced right here. Okay. He went over to right 5, and this is him standing after about 5 minutes. I got him back on, and you could see. Let me see if I can blow that up. I don't know how to do that. But this, you can do that probably on your computer. You see he's just, straight up. Okay. So what we talked about? What we've talked about is I'm introducing concepts tonight and not giving you the whole story and running it all the way through. What I'm talking about tonight is we have a postural listing that's a measurable expression of structure, neurology, gravity in real time, and energetic expression as it collapses over time. Our purpose is to be able to understand that three-dimensional misalignment as well as possible so we can try to three-dimensionally unlock it from the upper rubber band, so to speak, the fascia, using the cervical spine as levers, because you push against the TPs and the spinuses and the lamina to do what? To lift this person up three-dimensionally and open them. Somebody like this that has this kind of misalignment has to get straighter, okay, so that they can get bounced back in there, okay? So we have a release sequence that we look at, okay, and we look at the patterns of the people, okay, and the patterns are, we're going to find that are breakdowns from trauma in just really two areas, maybe three, that degenerate over time. And we go ahead. Please put your mute on. We hear a bunch of kids yelling in the background. Thank you. And what we've added in tonight is not just looking at the pelvis and the spine and the weight and the shoulders, neck, and head, is that we're going to actually start looking at some of the more complicated misalignments that didn't make sense to us and understand and see how that triangle is breaking down and see is the pelvis involved and does it need our attention. And if the pelvis needs our attention, it's just a matter of understanding neurology and structure. And because the legs are the lowest level, they are, to me, structural. Well, if they're not damaged, what do I look at next? I look at the second part. I look at the pelvis. Well, if that's sitting nice and level, I look at the next level, and that's the spine, and then the shoulders and the neck and the head. Well, most people have their damage at the legs and the pelvis. Okay, that's what I see. Okay, and I see that the spine tries to respond, then the shoulders, neck, and head try to respond. Okay, so now we start having a conversation a little bit more generally about structure and neurology. So what I have found is that if you took a rubber band and you stretch it, if you look at the human body, okay, and you look at this misalignment here, okay, three-dimensionally, it's like a tug of war, okay? So there's two things that we're trying to pull. There is this thing falling down, say, on this side. You see that shoulder's a little lower. Let's see it right here. Look at the pelvis on the right side. So this is falling downward. So there's tension on this right side to pull this down, and there is left side tension to pull this up. There are two tensions. Which one is bigger tension?
Go check out there, please.
The left side to pull it up.
Good. Go pot.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, so there are two tensions here. So this is like a giant tug of war. This was a huge epiphany for me about 6 months ago, and we'll discuss this at the conference. Is I used to only try to release short tension, which is, say, on this right side. Look at this. Low pelvis is right, and let me erase some of this stuff if you can see it. So can you see this pelvis, how low it is? You able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Brad, you're the only one talking tonight. Okay, so to stop this right hip from falling down, the left side has to be in tension. It has to be in more tension. Okay, so the neurology on the left has to activate the muscles on the left from having this fall over. So because the neurology is always bigger than the trauma itself, otherwise we would fall down, it is one of the reasons why we adjust neurology first. Okay, so we adjust the neurology side up first. Okay. So we're going to go in, what we'll do in Atlanta is look at these postural listings, and we're going to look at the patterns, and we're going to determine where the neurology is responding and where the structural damage is, and we're going to see the lowest level of that. And from that, we are going to look at the patterns, and these are the patterns of the human body. There are 10 for each side. So you have a left side up and a right side up. They are mirror images of each other. And what they are, and what we're going to go through, is looking for my okay. These four letters, these four, forget the X and Y there, sorry. The RRR and the L, those four letters in each misalignment, because of the postural sections that hold us up from, say, the legs all the way upward, and we're going to look at the triangle of those legs. We're going to look at these four things. Guys, whether you have a posture IQ or not, you can look at somebody and you can see what is tilted. It's a simple concept, okay? Then what you do is you look at this and you're going to start examining it and start understanding where the structural damage is and where the neurology is. In the first one is the structural damage is in the pelvis, okay? It's gone low on the right. So how do I know it's the lowest thing? Because the weight is right and the spine are right, and all three of those go together, okay? And if the weight's on the right, the leg's on the right, most likely. So what's responding is the left side, and that's the shoulder right here, okay? So it's response. So the neurology is left, so we would start left side up, and that's what would happen, okay? So then we have another pattern. We have this one where the shoulder is not left, it's right. That's that one where it becomes weaker, okay? And this person is a left-right release, okay? So these are the patterns, and they're in different categories and different colors because it's going to talk about, number one, where they've been traumatized. We're going to have a deeper discussion. It's as simple as this. You, on the first day, whether you understand it at all or not, you can actually look at somebody and know the release sequence for them using just look at on the first day. The second day, you can start looking at whether it's biomechanically responding correctly or breaking down, okay, and where that trauma is. Now, I have a check next to these two. If you were on the call last month, and if you've been around a while, this is the conversations that we're having. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's totally okay because there's about 4 hours that go before this that you would be right on point with. So if you're suffocating a little bit right now because it's the first time, just chill out and don't worry about it, okay? You're not supposed to be getting this all. That's the whole idea of this, okay? If you knew it, you wouldn't be on it, okay? So chill and take what you can get. I'm talking about some higher level stuff right now, okay? What you want to see is that we have postural patterns, and we look at them, and there is a release sequence for them. The reason these have a check next to them is because they are different than what I gave you last month, okay? And there's a reason for that. We'll discuss it in Atlanta. I just don't want to do it. It's too much in one night. But they are categorized because these misalignments are damaged at the pelvis. These misalignments are damaged at the pelvis and probably damaged further above the pelvis, or there's something else going on that we'll talk about another day. Okay, I'm not really sure about these two right now, where they fit. These are below the pelvis, okay? And if you look at the number 9 and you look at number 2, you'll see they're exactly the same as far as the 4 postural sections. They're 4 R's, okay? By the way, the X and the Y there, that's the head and the neck. Whatever they are is what they are. I just put X and Y. I'm a mechanical engineer, so X, Y, A, B, okay? The dashes in the middle are in here, or whatever the rotations are, okay? So it doesn't matter. That's not the conversation we're right now. We're talking about trying to understand the structure, trying to understand the neurology, and learning the release sequence, okay? So we're not looking into them tonight and learning what the neurology is and what the structure is. What we're looking at is just the patterns, and I'm telling you about the release sequences, and I'm saying do this for now if you'd like to, okay? So this down here is number number 9 and number 2 is the exact same misalignment, but if you notice their release sequence, this one is in LR, and this one is in L, okay, and not in R and not in L. Why is that? And the reason is because they've been damaged at different places, so they're structurally and neurologically different. Okay? Same thing in this one, number 10. Okay? Number 10, RRL and R. This is RRL and R. This is an RL, and that's an RL. They're the same, but they are different. Okay? They are different damage points. So the release sequence is the same, but the damage is different. And why is that important? Because when you do this, if something doesn't respond, you need to be able to see it and understand it, and then there's other discussions that you have of why isn't that happening. The whole thing about what I'm about is why things happen and how the body behaves. Okay? I do something and the body behaves a certain way, and I see it and I track it on the posture IQ. And innate intelligence tells me how it liked it, could it handle it, whether it, it loved it or it didn't like it, or it fell apart. And I may have a total, assumption that this misalignment needs an LR, but I go ahead and I adjust it on the left side, and then I measure it and I look at it and I go, hey, that looks pretty good, and the algorithm says go LR, and I turn them over and I adjust them on the right, and it helps them even more. I go, great. Well, what happens if it fell over and it blows out and the whole thing collapses? Okay, and the rotations kick up and it breaks down. Okay? Well, it's not that the algorithm wasn't right. It's that the patient couldn't handle it yet. Okay, so there's really great discussions in QSM3 is not just to look at where something is, but to understand the stresses, the biomechanical breakdowns, the neurologic response, okay? And then understanding what is not, where there's weakness, okay? So that you can talk to the patient and saying, hey, that pelvis and the spine are now integrated. They weren't that way. Your shoulder is still breaking down, and that's why that neck is doing what it's doing. You can have full three-dimensional conversations from beginning to end with your patient and with yourself. Yeah. So this looks complicated, but it's maybe for some people I think that are on for the first time, but otherwise it's pretty straight up. So this is where we stand, okay? We stand that I used to look at somebody and say that I would come in at their atlas at a high 4 and anterior 2. I would, it was a time when, in my beginning of my practice, that I had a drop table. There's a time where I had SOT blocks. There's a time where I had an activator, okay? I still have an activator, but I don't use it, okay? My daughter uses it for some functional work, okay, and extremities. But to globally, three-dimensionally change somebody and restore somebody and see somebody change over time and get in and reach into them and get against those bony processes and start feeling the fascia open up again and feeling motion restored is where the human body has its magic, okay? It happens on a daily basis. And, if you haven't been to a class for a while or you haven't been on for a while, come and check that out and see that, okay? Because it is real, okay? And it's real for me to do that for you, okay? And chiropractic right now is and for a while has been in a tough spot, okay? You can't deny that, guys. If you're a chiropractor, you have to sell what you do more than people just showing up for what you do. You have practice management groups that are 99%. I used to not take Facebook friends. I just got tired of it because I just got tired of chiropractors, man. Why? Because we're a stubborn group, man. We're a pig-headed group. We don't like to change. But I said, I'm going to just start friending people. Just like 9 out of 10 of them were telling me how they were going to build my practice. And there's only one way for me that I see to build my practice, and that is one patient at a time. Okay, it's just what I do. I don't do anything. Do I make a deal with somebody? Yeah, I give people care that I see need care. Okay? But, I think we have an ability to be what I call BOP, man, best on planet. All right? And there's a neurologic structural microbiology group out there at Harvard and the fascial gurus that are saying that the human body is made to be in a certain way, and we are the chiropractic method. There's a couple that actually say, yeah, we're into tensegrity, and tensegrity is this, but this is actually a measurable way to show that we can change that, okay? And to do that, okay, I need support to do that, because that's the only way we're going to break that glass ceiling. Okay, so if you're able to come in Atlanta, I hope you're able to make it. Okay, it'll knock your socks off, man. You'll learn more than you know where you are right now. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you came last time. You'll learn more than you are, because this is just the biomechanics. The biomechanics used to take almost the whole time. It takes right now about 6 hours. The whole other half of the class is my understanding and my evolution in getting people to latch on to that tension and to overcome it and restore that motion. And I think we can get people there, okay? Not easily, but better than we ever have, okay? It's streamlined, it's simple to understand, and you can do it right off the bat, and you'll do better work than you did what you're doing the day before, okay? I can't say that that's not true, probably. But everything as I said is my experience. So, anyway, so if you don't fight for what you want, don't cry for what you lost. Okay? And if you look around, you see your people are seeing trainers, okay? And and chiropractors are selling more keto diets than anybody on the planet. Yeah. You just have to look inward. Okay? Okay, man, that's the truth. Okay, so talk to me. Hey, Dr. Cizak. Derek, you there? Yeah.
Russell,
Yes, hey, man.
how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm good, doing well.
Yeah, would you mind sharing a little bit for a few minutes? You're okay to say no?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I went into Russell's office last Thursday. I've been practicing in Virginia for the last couple of years, just like kind of traditional chiropractic rehab model kind of thing, and I've just been feeling really broken down and twisted and all this, and it's been the same pattern pretty much since I've been practicing, which has been about 2 years. And I went in last week and we got some X-rays, and pretty twisted, right? So it looks pretty twisted up and a lot of weight on one side. And we put in 2 really good sessions, and honestly, this has been the best I've felt this week since I can remember. Honestly, it's really been great. I feel, not only less hung together and less twisted and rotated, but I feel like just understanding some of these principles has really helped unlock a piece of my brain just as to, what to feel, and it's got me in my body a little bit more. I work at a clinic now that's a big clinic. It's 10,000 square feet. So I'm moving and I'm walking all day long, and I can literally feel just in a week how differently my body has adapted to being able to move, and what I can do with it as well. Before it was, I'm kind of stuck in this pattern, and I know what I need to do, and I can do every stretch and exercise to try to counteract it, but I just wasn't able to move as freely as I can. And thank you for helping me out, Russ. It's really made a difference already.
Awesome.
Yeah,
man. It's the real amazing thing is that I think this tensegrity thing and you know, and orthogonal sits behind it, you know, and a bone out of place sits behind that, you know, and that kind of stuff. And we're just seeing the whole body as a three-dimensional unit, and if we can expand it, guess what we can do? And we need to start talking about that language, and the fascia and the osseous structure is integrated together. It's not one or the other, and understanding three-dimensionally how to open up. And when you do that, guess what happens? Boom. So, and the only reason I'm bringing out some of this is because I just adjusted Derek last week, and he sent me a text, and while you're talking, I opened my phone up, and it said, he reached out to me, and he said, I feel a big difference already. This was on Saturday, and I adjusted him Thursday, Friday. He said, it's like a compartment in my brain has been unlocked. Okay, so these are the things that happen, and I'm going to ask one more person, because there's a couple people that I adjusted, and if you want to chime in, but Bartosz is on the line, and his father came in and his mother came in, and his father, I'll chat for a second, was literally, he was pretty bent forward, you know, looking at the ground, and it took a couple visits, and I think after the second visit, when he came in on the third time, they came in for about 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
Straight. They came up from Florida. And I think on the third visit he came in, he hugged me, and he said to me, I can see the sky for the first time in a long time, years, because he was so bent over. And so we had an ability to take his body from a forward position and bring him up, and he's been at that position. He's been up a couple other times, but he's maintaining that position. He's got range of motion. His pains have subsided. I mean, I'd love to say 100%, but it's pretty close, in the neighborhood. And his mom, what did the mom do? I won some of that, so she got going. Okay, and it's just a perpetuation that happens. Because you can actually sit down and have a real conversation at a full level of what happened to them, how they responded, and a process that understands how to move that out of there. And it's a way for them to see it and not just saying, you know, hey, you know, you got TN, you got stress up there, or you got this over here, and look at that degeneration. Okay? It's time we go beyond that stuff. We build on that stuff. Bartosz, anything else that you want to add to that? How are you folks doing?
Yeah, they're doing great, you know. Just kind of keeps getting better and better, you know. I think they've got like a new lease on life at this point because, you know, they're now able to be more active, and, you know, because of that, they're then now starting to feel even better, and, you know, it's just a 180 turn from the way they were going, especially my dad. So, yeah, thank you as always. It's been an amazing change in a short amount of time for sure.
Yeah, and I know you've talked a couple times, but you know, I don't have my patience on these calls, so you know, some of you guys have had some people come in, and you know, so I'm going to pick your brain. Has anybody else been adjusted by me recently and want to say anything bad or good? You know what, I hated it. If you hate it, you're probably not on. So you know, it's not true you didn't hate it. Anybody? Okay. All right. So, any questions on what I talked about tonight?
Hey, Russell.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little about the tug of war release? And then I didn't really hear you say much about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so what I found is I've been trying to like release the short side all the time and release up. And a lot of times it's just so much work down at that C7, C5 area, especially if you're on the side of the low hip. That tension is so strong that if you release the other side of the tension, okay, a lot of times half of, you know, it's just that side you could just 50% of it releases, and you can dive right into it and go and get that hip out of there. So there's a way that, say I'm on the right side and I'm working C7, C5, and I'm trying, and that's my low hip side, and I'm trying to really, and that thing's just like steel. Okay, so what I do now is I try to unlock the other side, and I don't flip them over. There's a method to accessing it on that side, and there's a headpiece placement and a headpiece position, and then a line of drive that it's like almost like when you pop the pickle jar, man, and it goes pop. Okay, so you can pop it using the head, and that's that concept of rolling the head that's evolved. That we're going to roll the head, and we're actually going to roll the piezoform at the same time, because really what has to happen is we have to be able to get that piezoform to get moving through the fascia and grabbing onto the tension and getting into the osseous layer and kind of bending the spinous and the TPs, and then driving through range of motion and taking people all the way. And you guys can feel that. I mean, no different than if you had a cast on your arm. You wouldn't just go take the person or somebody's arm. You wouldn't just take their arm, or you've checked somebody's knee before. You don't just take it. You feel it, and you feel the restriction in it. Or you've touched somebody's neck if you've been doing upper cervical work, and you put your hand down and you feel that restriction. Well, there is a method to going through all that stuff and chipping away that granite and working the upper and lower neck, yin and yang, okay, working that tug of war so that you can actually go through the layers and even get into the dura and release the dura. And that's where, when you start releasing the dura and you release the motion, okay, that headpiece position is the same head position that does that for you, Andy. So it's a multitude plays that really unlocks everything, and people they're the ones that, that when you release that, what you do, people stand up and go, I just feel different, man.
Well, Scott, registrations for Atlanta with the conversation.
I hear that all the time. I feel that on my first step.
Mm-hmm.
Russell?
You say
Yeah, buddy.
You're saying you do it on the same side? You're doing...
Andy, hold on one second. Andy, I have to show you those things, and the reason is because there is an ability. You put the person in kind of a crazy place, and you really have to get the line of drive right, or you can I don't want to say you can hurt them, but it's like you're bending your finger backwards, and you're talking about your head and your neck up there. It's sensitive,
I get you.
So you got to know the line of drive, and you got to be able to see. So I want to show that. But you're really going to get that person up on that temporal support and create a V and cave the whole thing in.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's unlocks the whole universe, man. The Dura and C2, the Atlas, and everything just unwinds right there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I have another guy that has. I have a kid that just started up a couple months ago. He has severe scoliosis. His frontal brain did not develop, so he's got cognitive issues, and he has cluster seizures pretty much every night. He's had, in the couple months that I've been working on him, he's had one cluster seizure instead of every night, and he has significant cognition change, and his right sciatic pain has gone away.
Nice.
Yeah, nice, man. It's nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
My little Irish Peggy Quinn, 85-year-old lady that's had the 3 shots, man, on Monday. She was slapping me today. What else can you do, man? Hitting me on like the back and the arm, talking, "Hey, Dr. Friedman." She's got an Irish accent.
Mm-hmm.
She's from the hood. That's the way it should be, right? That's the way it should be in our office, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so anything else? Brad, you had one other question, and we'll get off.
You were just talking to Andy about, you say if it's tight on the right side, you can release the other side, but are you doing that from the right side? Were you just
on the same side, you release it.
That's what I was asking. Thank you.
I'm going to show you that, okay, because of, I said you release it on the same side. You don't flip them over. That's not the idea. Look at the body's a big balloon, okay, so you can access everything from one side. Okay? So just think about that. Put your finger into a balloon, and what happens to the whole balloon? The whole balloon pulls to the finger 3-dimensionally, right? You follow what I mean?
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, the human body is the same way. So the difference is the human body has been damaged. Okay? So we have to adjust them on both sides sometimes because we get a much more linear contact. okay, because they've damaged it. So you get a better leverage. You can take the tension further because they've damaged some of the tension. It's like the saran is loose in that area and you can't access it, okay? So you have to flip them over. And we learn that stuff. Anyway, we'll see that. Anyway, we'll talk further about some of this stuff next month. I ask you to please go on the doctor's forum, okay, and engage me, man. Hit like, ask a question. If you got a case, whatever you do, man, we can make this interactive. It's tiring for me otherwise. Okay? Any questions? Good, man. I'll see you soon. Okay, I appreciate you being on. Have a nice night.
Night, Russell.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, Russ.
Night.
Cool. Thank you, Russell. Good night.